watching TVP World News. I'm Jan Szrewiński. A ceasefire with Russia could take place if the free and sovereign Ukrainian territories are taken under the NATO umbrella, said President Zelensky in an interview with Sky News. In his view, membership in this military alliance could be the key to ending the war.
So, legally, by law, we have no right to recognize the occupied territory as territory of Russia. And here, we must not make any mistake. But if we want to stop the hot stage of the war, we should take under NATO umbrella the territory of Ukraine that we have under our control. That's what we need to do fast. And then Ukraine can get back the other part of its territory diplomatically. So, and this proposal has never been considered by Ukraine because no one has ever offered that to us officially. We can't, by law, recognize our territory, Ukrainian territory, under occupation of Russia as Russian. That is impossible. That is against the constitution of Ukraine.
In Georgia, thousands of pro-European protesters have returned to the streets of the capital Tbilisi, where they clashed with police early on Sunday. The protests came in the wake of the government's decision to postpone negotiations concerning EU membership until 2028.
The second night of unrest follows the ruling Georgian Dream Party's announcement that it was putting European Union accession talks on hold until 2028. Protesters were targeted by water cannon as they attempted to set up barricades in the city centre. EU accession is overwhelmingly popular in Georgia, according to opinion polls, and the move saw thousands protest outside the parliament building in Tbilisi on Thursday night into Friday morning. Hundreds of serving employees of the country's foreign, defence, education and justice ministries on Friday signed open letters denouncing the freeze-in talks as unconstitutional.
Romanians will vote in parliamentary elections on Sunday. This vote follows the first round of presidential elections held last weekend, which was unexpectedly won by pro-Russian independent candidate Călin Georgescu. As these votes are being contested and might even be nullified, nothing can be taken for granted when it comes to the results of the general elections. Our correspondent Paweł Trzaskowski is on site in Romania and has more on the ensuing political conundrum in the country.
There is a lot of uncertainty looming over Romanian politics currently, but the one thing that is certain is the recount of the votes from the first round of presidential elections that were held earlier last week. The first round of presidential elections was surprisingly won by Călin Georgescu. Călin Georgescu is an independent, pro-Russian and anti-NATO candidate that took to a surprising win, mainly because of a very successful TikTok campaign. But his TikTok campaign is said to be marred by irregularities, and therefore a recount was ordered. And the results of the recount will probably be made available on Sunday, and on Monday maybe even the decision to eventually nullify the results of the elections will be made. That will be the first situation of such a kind in the modern history of Romanian politics. But before this happens on Sunday, Romanians will go to the polls to vote in the general elections, and here comes another uncertainty, and that's the polls. Currently the polls give the lead to the hard-right Our Party. Now Our Party is the former party of Călin Georgescu, the winner of the first round of presidential elections, but he left the party after his colleagues had said that he's too extreme for Our. Still, Our is a hard-right party that competes mainly with Social Democrats, part of a current coalition government. The polls give Social Democrats now 21%, so the margin is different, but the polls have already proven to be unreliable if we look at the results of the last week's presidential elections. So anything can happen in Romanian politics, and we will be here to cover it. From Bucharest, Romania, for TVP World, Paweł Trzaskowski.
Anti-Russian sentiment is on the rise in Romania, with even the far right softening its stance on NATO and the European Union. In an interview for TVP World, former State Secretary at the Romanian Foreign Ministry, Stefan Popescu, reiterated his state's commitment to ties with the West.
Let's say the far right wins both the presidential and the parliamentary elections. So what awaits Romania then? What awaits Europe then? What awaits NATO then, and in consequence Ukraine as well?
There is, however, one aspect that you should not neglect: the anti-Russian sentiment of Romanians. Like Poland, we have a painful history with Russia. We were not abolished as a state, but we were occupied 12 times by the Russians through our history. So even if in this scenario, I think the Romanians' presence in NATO and the EU is solid.
Now, amid the rising hybrid threats that NATO countries have to face, one name has come up consistently: Vladimir Putin. In this week's episode of the Warsaw Debate, hosted by Grzegorz Nawrocki and Małgorzata Bonikowska, the main question was, will Putin attack a NATO member state? To learn more about this, make sure to watch the full episode of Warsaw Debate this Sunday at 9:10 Central European Time. And here is a quick clip. Let's take a look.
Next episode of Warsaw Debate is going to be about Russia, and in particular Vladimir Putin, who is threatening Europe, who is threatening the United States, who's basically threatening the world with all sorts of threats. We are going to test the threats and see whether they are real threats or just a kind of desperation of a losing autocrat.
We have very good experts, analysts, not only from Poland, but we'll be joined by General Hodges from the US, Garry Kasparov, who knows Russia very well, he's himself Russian, and also an expert from Rome. And we will try to figure out where is our potential and in what way Russia can really attack a NATO country, if any.
Friendly warning or ambiguous message. Vladimir Putin has warned US President-elect Donald Trump that he is still not safe from assassination attempts, even after winning the election. In the same breath, Putin also said that Moscow is ready to sit at the negotiating table with the incoming Trump administration to discuss peace resolutions for the war in Ukraine.
As the world's eyes focus on the incoming US president, last seen at his Mar-a-Lago residence celebrating Thanksgiving with Elon Musk and family, some world leaders who have been at odds with the Joe Biden administration have spoken out in favor of President-elect Donald Trump. One such leader is Russian President Vladimir Putin, who shared a heartfelt warning with the future 47th President of the United States.
I was most struck by the use of absolutely uncivilized means of struggle that were used against Trump, including attempted murder, and more than once. By the way, in my opinion, he's not safe now either. Unfortunately, there have been all sorts of different incidents in the history of the United States, but I think that he is an intelligent person, and I hope also cautious now, and that he understands all of this.
Concern isn't the only thing the Russian president showed during his address to Donald Trump. Despite his recent political bouts with Washington over Joe Biden granting Kyiv permission to strike targets deep inside Russian territory with US-made weapons, Putin said he's ready to negotiate, especially with the next inhabitant of the White House.
He's absolutely out to flatter Trump in the hopes that it gets Putin what he wants. Now, you've got two issues here. You've got the first one is how Trump looks at this. The second one is how Putin is looking at this. Putin is hoping that those two align. But I'm not so sure. I think for Putin, negotiations means capitulation, that he gets everything that he wants. And it remains to be seen whether or not Trump is willing to cave into that.
Experts like Diane Francis, senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, say Trump's efforts to reach peace in Ukraine are nothing more than a business deal given Ukraine's vast reserves of resources.
Ukraine, and Crimea in particular offshore, has enough fossil fuel to make Europe energy independent. So there's a lot at stake here for Russia in the future in terms of economics. So this, to me, is turning into, and this is how you have to deal with the Trump. It has to be framed as a business deal.
Experts also say the increased ferocity of fighting in Ukraine is tied to Donald Trump's ceasefire promises, as both Kiev and Moscow battle for more bargaining chips to bring to the negotiating table.
Now, surprising leave for Iga Świątek, rather forced than expected and definitely not non-negotiable. The world-renowned Polish tennis player has accepted a one-month suspension imposed by the International Tennis Integrity Agency after testing positive for a banned substance. Świątek describing this as the hardest moment in her life, explaining that the positive test was the result of taking contaminated prescribed melatonin tablets. While her fans are eagerly awaiting her return, and despite the support she received from the sporting community, the brief duration of her suspension has sparked criticism from other tennis players who have faced longer bans.
Świątek, who is among the most successful female tennis players in the world, revealed on Thursday that trimetazidine was discovered in her tests. The banned substance can enhance endurance and delay fatigue.
The detected concentration, which was extremely low, suggested, or rather made it obvious, that either the sample was contaminated or a supplement or medication that I was taking was contaminated, which is why we focused on running tests on all nutritional supplements and medications I was taking.
Świątek's team proved that the banned substance entered her body via contaminated melatonin, and she was allowed to return after a one-month ban.
The ITIA accepts that the positive test was caused by contamination by a regulated non-prescription medication, melatonin, manufactured and sold in Poland, that the player had been taking for jet lag and sleep issues, and that the violation was therefore not intentional.
The length of the ban did not go unnoticed. Former Grand Slam champion Simona Halep criticized the big difference in treatment when she suffered an 18-month suspension. Small amounts of anemia drug commonly used by cyclists to enhance endurance were found in her system due to a contaminated licensed supplement.
No two cases are the same. They often involve different circumstances, and different comparisons are not always helpful. There are some very important differences in these two cases. The product contaminated in Świątek's case was a regulated medication, not a supplement.
Medications are tightly regulated for safety and effectiveness, while supplements have less oversight, making them more prone to contamination risks. Despite the criticism, Świątek mainly received support from her fans and the sports community at large.
The Polish Tennis Association fully supports Iga Świątek in this difficult moment of her career, knowing how important the principles of fair competition in the spirit of fair play have always been to her. It is also worth appreciating that she had the courage to inform the public in such a transparent and detailed way about the situation.
While fans are eager to see Świątek back in action, the controversy surrounding her brief suspension and Halep's extended ban continues to fuel discussions about the fairness in tennis.
Black Friday is over and Cyber Monday is just around the corner, which means that shoppers are gearing up for the biggest sales of the year. To help consumers navigate the plethora of deals and safely and smartly, the Office of Competition and Consumer Protection has released a list of tips to avoid potential pitfalls during this shopping frenzy.
These sales might seem tempting, but sometimes they are too good to be true.
I'm not shopping during Black Friday because I think it's a scam. I mean, prices are raised earlier to then be artificially cut. Or if it's a genuine discount, it's something like 5%, and that's not very enticing.
The Polish Office of Competition and Consumer Protection is urging consumers to stay vigilant during Black Friday and Cyber Monday promotions. Their guidelines advise shoppers to compare prices beforehand, read the fine print on discounts, and be cautious of offers that seem too good to be true. The aim is to protect consumers from deceptive practices and ensure they benefit from genuine deals. According to recent data from the Cashless Poland Foundation, approximately 2/3 of Poles plan to take advantage of Black Friday promotions this year. Many are looking to purchase electronics, clothing and household appliances and do it at a big bargain. According to UCE research, 1/3 of Poles are hoping for discounts higher than 50%. We took to the streets of Warsaw to ask residents about their Black Friday shopping plans.
Yeah, I do shop during Black Friday actually. I buy holiday presents for my children, but I don't think the prices are that good. I shopped for clothes. I wanted to buy specific things. I researched their price before the Black Friday discount and compared it to today.
Consumers are warned that Black Friday can sometimes be a marketing trap. In the past years, some retailers were found to inflate prices before the sales, only to reduce them during Black Friday, making the discounts appear more significant than they actually were. However, something has already been done to address this issue. Introduced last year, the EU's Omnibus Directive requires sellers to display the lowest price of a product from the last 30 days, alongside the current discounted price.
A ghost ship was seen drifting in the Baltic Sea after its crew was evacuated on Thursday. The merchant ship Sofia sailed out from Poland's north on Thursday, and a fire broke out shortly thereafter. Just 30 nautical miles from the Polish shore, an empty shell of a burned ship is adrift in the Baltic Sea. Just after setting sail from Poland's Ustka harbour, Danish services told the Polish Maritime Search and Rescue Service that a fire had broken out on the ship. Danish and Swedish helicopters arrived to evacuate the 5-person crew. They were taken to a Danish frigate. It remains unknown what caused the fire and the subsequent damage on board the Sofia. The Polish Maritime Office has reported that a tugboat from Germany is on its way to tow the vessel to the nearest port or a repair yard. And that's all for now on this news bulletin. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates.